Hi, students. This is Mr. Liu, and today I'm going to talk about monopolies. And there are 5 learning objectives. The first is define what a monopoly is. And I would simply say a monopoly is a market controlled by a single firm. So when you have a monopoly, it is, in fact, the market. Number 2, explain why price exceeds marginal revenue in a monopoly. Well, price will always exceed marginal revenue in a monopoly. For each incremental unit sold in a monopoly market, imperfect market, you are simply going to have to accept, the monopoly is going to have to accept lower revenues. In other words, each unit they sell at a lower price, total revenue is going to decrease. Number 3, describe how a monopoly sets output and price. Well, in the case of a monopoly, output is going to be set where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And then the price is set simply by looking at the demand curve, where is the highest price on the demand curve, and that will be the price in a monopoly situation. Number 4, illustrate how monopoly and competitive outcomes differ. Well, put simply, in the case of a monopoly, the monopoly will produce less output at higher prices. And these are higher prices than would exist given a competitive marketplace. And number 5, list the pros and cons of monopoly structures. Well, the pros of monopoly structures, if the monopoly company wanted to, they could lower price if they found ways to lower their costs. One of the cons is that monopolies don't necessarily have the economic incentive to innovate and therefore drive prices down. So with a monopoly, you do have barriers to entry, and that's by definition, that's part of being monopoly. Difficult, if not impossible, for competitors to enter the market. Part of the reason why is that monopolies can use predatory pricing. In other words, purposely lower their prices, in fact, even lose money in some cases to drive away competition. There are some positives to monopolistic markets. In some cases, you have monopolies that are government sanctioned because it just simply would not make any sense to have multiple cable companies or phone companies with wires and all the infrastructure that's required all over the place. One of the things that you have to remember with monopolies, using the example of the airlines, is if there is no competition and one airline has exclusivity to an airline route, they can charge whatever price they want. And apparently, studies have shown that 1 in 10 airline route is considered a monopoly. And airports, which have very few airlines, so you take the Salt Lake Airport, there's not a lot of airlines, and therefore prices could be artificially higher than they should be. On the other hand, if you have a lot of airlines in an airport, you can see more competitive pricing. Well, this is Mr. Liu, and this is the information I will share with you today about monopolies. I will tell you that in the final exam, the most important thing that you need to remember in a monopoly is that it begins with a perfect competition, where you have perfect competition, many companies offering the same products and the same services, and they are essentially price takers. And you go from that perfect competition to um, monopolistic competition, where companies, products, and services are differentiated by branding and loyalty strategies, and then to duopolies or oligopolies, where you have very few competitors. And then the most imperfect competition is, of course, monopoly, where you have one firm that is the entire market. Good luck to you, and let me know if you have any questions.